Welcome back to the deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're tackling a really cool concept,
Yeah.
using the principles of alchemy to enhance our journey as followers of the law of one.
It's a fascinating idea.
It is.
Yeah, we've got some great sources for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Classic alchemical texts like
Yeah.
The Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy, The Wisdom of the Raw Material, and even some historical perspectives.
Okay, so let me just jump in here for a sec for our listeners who might not be as familiar.
Sure.
What exactly is alchemy?
Well,
Yeah.
most people think of alchemy as this ancient quest to turn lead into gold.
Right.
But it's so much more than that.
Okay.
It's really a system of transformation that operates on multiple levels, physical, mental, and spiritual.
Okay.
And that's where we see a powerful connection to the law of one,
Okay.
which is all about the evolution of consciousness.
I see that.
Yeah.
And the Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy really emphasizes that point.
Yeah.
It talks about how the word alchemy itself can be applied to creative transformation in any field.
So whether it's chemistry, psychology, or even software development.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the universal principles that govern change and growth,
Okay.
and then applying those principles to elevate our being. Both alchemy and the law of one emphasize this journey from a lower state of being to a higher one.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these two systems, separated by centuries, arrive at such a similar concept.
It really is. Speaking of ancient wisdom, we can't talk about alchemy without mentioning the Emerald Tablet, right? Attributed to Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom,
Oh, yeah.
and was supposedly housed in the Great Library of Alexandria.
Ah, yes, the Emerald Tablet. It's considered a foundational text in alchemy, and its central message,
Yeah.
as above, so below, deeply resonates with the law of one.
Okay.
This idea of interconnectedness, the microcosm reflecting the macrocosm,
Right.
is crucial to both systems. It suggests that the patterns and principles we see in the universe are mirrored within ourselves. So how does that idea of interconnectedness actually play out in alchemy?
Well, one way is through the concept of the four elements.
Okay.
Earth, air, fire, and water.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're familiar with the law of one's concept of densities.
Yeah.
And while they're not a direct correlation, there's a resonance there.
Okay.
Think of them as distinct vibrational levels or states of being.
Hmm.
The four elements represent fundamental building blocks of reality, just like densities represent different stages of spiritual evolution.
I see what you mean.
Ah.
And the Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy points out that even Aristotle was thinking about these elements.
Yeah.
He viewed them as combinations of hot, cold, wet, and dry.
Yeah,
And alchemists used these qualities in their practices.
that's right. And Jung, the famous psychologist, also had his own take on the elements.
Okay.
He believed that finding balance among them could lead to greater intelligence and a truer perception of reality. So we're not just talking about physical elements here,
Right.
but also psychological and spiritual ones.
Okay, so we've got transformation, interconnectedness, and these fundamental elements.
Yeah.
But the Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy also mentions these three essentials: sulfur, mercury, and salt.
Yes.
I have to admit, it sounds a bit like a recipe for a magic potion.
Haha. Well, they're not ingredients in the literal sense.
Right.
But they represent crucial principles in the alchemical process of transformation.
Okay.
Imagine them as the primary forces that drive change and growth within us.
Okay.
Sulfur represents our energy, and Mercury represents adaptability and consciousness,
Uh-huh.
and salt represents our physical body and the grounding it provides.
Interesting. And get this. The book says that these three essentials emerge from the first matter,
Oh, wow.
which sounds a lot like the law of one's concept of the original thought.
Yeah, there is.
It's as if both systems acknowledge this primordial source from which everything arises.
You're right. There is a similarity there, but I think we can go even deeper.
Okay.
The original thought in the law of one is this idea of pure, undifferentiated consciousness. And the first matter in alchemy from which the three essentials emerge is also this primordial, undifferentiated state.
Okay.
It's like a cosmic soup that holds the potential for all creation.
Wow. That's a powerful image.
Right.
So if we follow that analogy, the three essentials represent different aspects of that original thought, right?
Exactly.
It's like they embody different facets of our being, different ways that the one expresses itself within us.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting in relation to the law of one.
What?
Think about how the alchemists sought to purify and combine these three essentials to create the Philosopher's Stone,
Right.
which represented spiritual perfection.
Okay.
We, as followers of the law of one, can apply a similar concept to our own lives.
You mean by working to purify and balance our inner energies,
Precisely.
like finding harmony between our will, our adaptability, and our physical grounding.
Precisely.
Oh.
Because when these energies are in balance, we become more aligned with the law of one.
Hmm.
We become clearer channels for love and light, and our spiritual evolution accelerates.
Hmm.
It's like we're creating our own Philosopher's Stone, not through external means, but through inner transformation.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So how do we actually do that?
Yeah, that's the question.
I mean, the Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy mentions all these intriguing alchemical operations and symbols. The ladder of the planets, calcination, putrefaction, dragons, even a rose garden.
It's a whole world.
It's like a whole secret language we need to learn.
And that's part of the beauty of alchemy. It's rich with symbolism and metaphor.
Okay.
But don't worry, we don't need to become master alchemists to apply these principles to our lives.
Right.
Think of these symbols as tools for understanding our own psychological and spiritual processes.
Okay.
For example, calcination, which involves intense heating to purify a substance, could be a metaphor for shedding old beliefs and patterns that no longer serve us.
So it's like we're using the fire of self-awareness to burn away what's holding us back.
Exactly.
And what about the rose garden?
The rose garden is often depicted as a place of beauty and harmony. In the context of alchemy, it could symbolize a state of spiritual blossoming that emerges from the work we do on ourselves. It's a reminder that even though the alchemical process can be challenging,
Right.
it ultimately leads to a greater sense of peace and fulfillment. And that's where things start to get really practical, for those of us seeking to apply these ideas to our lives as followers of the law of one.
Okay. So let's get practical. How can someone actually incorporate alchemical principles into their daily life to become a better follower of the law of one?
Well, remember how we were talking about purifying the three essentials? Think of that purification process as refining your own thoughts, emotions, and actions.
Okay.
It's like the alchemists meticulously heating and purifying metals to remove impurities.
So you're saying we could apply that same process to ourselves, but how?
It is abstract
Yeah.
in a way, but also very practical.
Okay.
Take meditation, for instance. It's
Okay.
a way to quiet the mind,
Right.
to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. In a way, it's like we're heating up our inner metals.
Okay.
So that impurities can rise to the surface and be released.
I see what you mean. And the raw material talks a lot about how our thoughts and emotions create energy.
Right.
And how that energy can either serve or hinder our spiritual growth.
Exactly.
So it makes sense that purifying those inner energies would be essential for following the law of one.
Exactly. And don't forget the importance of intention.
Right.
Alchemy places a big emphasis on the power of the mind to direct energy and create change. So by setting clear intentions, aligning our actions with our highest values, and cultivating positive thoughts, we're essentially engaging in alchemical self-purification.
That's interesting. It's like we're using the tools of alchemy to create a more harmonious inner environment.
Yeah.
Which then allows us to radiate more love and light outward.
Precisely. And remember the emerald tablets, as above, so below.
Right.
That principle applies here too.
Okay.
As we refine our inner world, that transformation ripples outward, impacting the world around us. It's a beautiful cycle.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by the concept of the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
It sounds so magical.
It does.
The Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy describes it as this substance that can transmute base metals into gold, but also as a representation of spiritual perfection.
Right.
How does that fit into the Law of One framework?
That's a great question. I think in the context of the Law of One, we can view the Philosopher's Stone as a metaphor for achieving a state of unity consciousness.
Okay.
It's about integrating all aspects of ourselves, transcending duality,
Right.
and fully aligning with the Creator.
So it's not just about some external object or magical formula, but about an internal state of being.
Right. It's about the culmination of our spiritual work, the realization of our true nature as beings of love and light. It's about becoming that which we seek.
It sounds like an ongoing process rather than a fixed destination.
Absolutely. And that aligns perfectly with the Law of One's emphasis on constant learning and evolution. We're always striving to become more aligned with the Creator, to refine our understanding and expand our consciousness.
Speaking of alignment, the Law of One really stresses the importance of service to others.
Yeah.
Where does that fit into the alchemical picture?
That's a key point.
Okay.
True alchemy isn't just about personal transformation. It's about using that transformation to benefit the whole, to contribute to the evolution of consciousness on a larger scale.
So it's not enough to just work on ourselves. We have to use our refined energy to help others.
Exactly. And there's an alchemical principle that speaks directly to this: projection.
Projection. I usually think of that term in a negative way, like projecting our own issues onto others.
I understand. But in alchemy, projection takes on a different meaning. It's about consciously directing our energy outward to create positive change in the world. It's about using a refined consciousness to heal, to inspire, to uplift others.
So it's like we're taking the gold we've created through our inner work and sharing it with the world, using it to make a positive impact.
That's a perfect analogy. And the Law of One provides a framework for ethical projection.
Mm.
It's about serving others with unconditional love, respecting their free will,
Right.
and acting in a way that's harmless and beneficial to all.
Now, earlier you were talking about how alchemy is about working with fundamental energies.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give some specific examples of how we can do that in an alchemical way to become better followers of the Law of One?
Well, let's go back to the three essentials: sulfur, mercury, and salt.
Okay.
Remember, sulfur represents energy and will.
Right.
Mercury represents adaptability and consciousness.
Uh-huh.
And salt represents the physical body and grounding.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah.
But how do we actually work with these energies in our everyday lives?
Imagine you're feeling drained and unmotivated.
Uh-huh.
You could focus on cultivating the energy of sulfur,
Okay.
which is associated with willpower and drive.
Right.
You might try things like exercise, spending time in nature, or engaging in activities that ignite your passion.
So it's about consciously choosing activities that boost our energy and motivation, like stoking our inner fire.
Exactly. And what about when you need to be more flexible, adaptable, or open-minded?
Yeah.
That's when you might focus on cultivating the energy of Mercury.
Okay.
Meditation, journaling, exploring new ideas,
Right.
or simply being willing to step outside of your comfort zone. These are all ways to enhance your adaptability.
Like becoming more fluid like Quicksilver. I love that image.
And then there's salt, which is all about grounding and connection to the physical world.
Hmm.
If you're feeling scattered or disconnected, spending time in nature, doing grounding exercises, or engaging in activities that bring you back into your senses can help you cultivate that grounding energy.
So it's like we have this alchemical toolkit we can draw from depending on what we need in any given moment.
Yeah.
We can choose to focus on our will, our adaptability, or our grounding.
Precisely. And by consciously working with these energies, we create a more harmonious inner state, which then allows us to more effectively serve others and embody the principles of the Law of One.
It's like alchemy is giving us a new language to understand and work with the subtle energies that shape our reality. It's not about denying the material world, but about refining it, elevating it, and using it as a tool for spiritual growth.
Beautifully put. And remember, this is just a glimpse into the vast world of alchemy. There are countless ways to apply these principles to our lives as followers of the Law of One.
So where would you recommend our listeners go from here?
Mm.
What resources might help them delve deeper?
The Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy is a great starting point for understanding the basic principles and practices.
And of course, the raw material is essential for understanding the Law of One itself.
Absolutely. There are also a lot of books, websites, and even courses dedicated to exploring the deeper aspects of alchemy and its applications. The key is to approach it with an open mind and a sincere desire to learn and grow.
It's like embarking on a grand adventure, a quest for self-discovery and spiritual transformation.
I love that. And remember, this journey isn't about reaching a fixed destination. It's about the ongoing process of refining ourselves, expanding our consciousness, and expressing love and light in the world.
It really is an incredible journey, and it seems like alchemy gives us some powerful tools to navigate it. Now, speaking of navigation, the Law of One emphasizes this concept of polarity,
Right.
the idea that everything has its opposite. How does that play into alchemy?
That's such an important concept. In alchemy, polarity is often represented by the duality of opposites, like light and dark, masculine and feminine, or even spirit and matter.
Okay.
And the alchemical process is all about finding harmony between these opposing forces, integrating them into a unified whole.
So it's not about denying or rejecting one side of the polarity, but about finding balance between them.
Exactly. And this ties back to the Law of One's teaching that both service to self and service to others are valid paths.
Right.
Ultimately, the goal is to move beyond this duality and achieve a state of unity consciousness where these opposites merge.
It's like the alchemical process is a reflection of the cosmic dance of polarity and unity that's happening throughout creation.
That's a profound insight. And as we work on ourselves, as we evolve spiritually, we contribute to that cosmic harmony. We become a microcosm of that grand dance.
You know, one thing I've been curious about is all the symbolism in alchemy.
Oh, yeah.
The Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy mentions things like dragons and a rose garden.
Mm-hmm.
What do those symbols mean in the context of spiritual evolution?
Remember, alchemy is a language of symbols. And these symbols often represent different stages of the transformation process.
Like,
Think of them as guideposts along the path.
okay, so what about the dragon?
Yeah.
I have to admit, it's a pretty intimidating image.
Uh-huh. Well, dragons often symbolize primal forces, raw energy that can be destructive if not harnessed properly.
Hmm.
In the alchemical process, encountering a dragon might represent facing our shadow self,
Okay.
confronting those aspects of ourselves that we fear or repress.
So it's like those inner demons we all have to deal with at some point.
Exactly, and working with these dragons, integrating them into our being, is a crucial part of the alchemical process.
Okay.
It can be challenging,
Right.
but ultimately it leads to greater self-mastery and spiritual power.
And what about the rose garden? That sounds a lot more pleasant.
The rose garden often symbolizes a state of spiritual blossoming, a culmination of the alchemical work. It represents beauty, harmony, and a deep sense of peace that arises from inner transformation.
So it's like the reward for all our hard work, the fruits of our labor.
You could say that it's a reminder that the alchemical journey isn't all about struggle and hardship.
Right.
There's also joy, beauty, and a profound sense of fulfillment along the way.
Well, we've covered so much in this deep dive into alchemy and the law of one, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface. But to bring it back to our main question, how can we actually use alchemy to be better followers of the law of one?
I think the key takeaway is that alchemy provides us with a practical framework for understanding and working with the energies that shape our reality. By applying principles like self-awareness, purification, transformation, and service, we can align ourselves more fully with the law of one and accelerate our spiritual growth.
So it's about using these ancient tools to cultivate love, wisdom, and compassion within ourselves.
Yes.
And then radiating those qualities outward into the world.
Exactly. And never forget the law of one's central message. Seek the heart of self. Discover the divine spark within you and let it guide your actions.
Right.
Alchemy can be a powerful ally in that quest.
It really has been an illuminating exploration. I'm so grateful for your insights. And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep. Who knows what transformations await you on your own alchemical journey?